Technology has improved our lives in incredible ways, but often we don't truly know by how much. The vehicles we drive, the computers we operate, and the connections we have to people around the world have all been bolstered by modern technology systems and automation processes that make the world a better place. But how did they come to be? Hey there. Welcome back to another episode of C-Suite Unplugged, an Alberta Better podcast series. In this series, host Adam Legg talks to Alberta's top CEOs, entrepreneurs, and business leaders about their journey to the C-suite, what keeps them up at night as an Albertan and as a leader in their industry, and what their outlook is for the future. And on today's episode, we speak with Grant Wilde, President and CEO of Spartan Controls, a company that provides industrial automation solutions to Western Canada. We talked to Grant about his near 30-year career at the company, his leadership perspective and what influenced it, and why he swears by the power of meditation. We'll also dig into the company's story and Grant's outlook on its future and the future of Alberta. If you found this episode interesting or insightful, let us know by heading over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and give us a quick review and rating. Now, on to the show.
Welcome back, everybody, to our next episode of C-Suite Unplugged. Today, it's about technology. Technology is a part of everything we do and experience in life. And I know for me, I often stop and think, how did that get made? What was the process? So much of what we take for granted every day was done through technology and automation and integration of so many different systems. You ever thought of how your favorite beer gets from its raw product into cans and ready to ship? Or how power is optimized? Or how there's always paper for your printer? Behind all of these and many more things lies the work of Spartan Controls. I'm delighted today to speak with one of BCA's members, Grant Wilde, President and CEO of Spartan Controls. Grant's a great and true leader at Spartan, building and growing their unique culture, and has done a lot of thought leadership in the area of leadership, energy, and employee-owned corporations. It's going to be a delight for you to hear his story and the story of Spartan Controls. Grant, thanks so much for joining me.
Hey, well, thank you, Adam. Nice intro. And yeah, great to be here. Appreciate you doing this. Fun thing to do.
We're excited to hear from you, Grant. So before we dig in, why don't you tell us a little bit about Spartan Controls? I've tried to give some hints in terms of what it does, but what is it that Spartan Controls does and how long has it been around?
Okay, well, we're an industrial automation company that supplies technology, as you kind of mentioned, for things like measurement, control, systems, software, and solutions that frankly enable industrial processes to operate, I would say safely, reliably, optimally, and automatically, right? So you think of us as the maybe central nervous system, the intelligence, even the mind actually behind the operating plants.
Mm-hmm.
And, automation, I'm not sure how much, the listeners know, but it's required in all our modern industrial plants, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And because of that, we have the opportunity to work with customers across a diverse range of industries. And you hinted at a few of those. Pulp and paper would be one, your nice example of paper for your printer. Mining of precious metals like gold and copper. So, think of all the stuff that goes into use cases for that. Minerals like potash for fertilizer production, water treatment facilities, certainly all the water, both waste and pure water coming out into Calgary is from our control technology. We also serve chemical industry, so we're contributing to manufacturing of plastics. You mentioned power, so yeah, power generation for our homes, offices, all the infrastructure. Refining complexes, fuel production, gasoline, jet fuel, think of that. And, the entire oil and gas sector, kind of from wellhead production to midstream processing to pipeline transporting, all of those are part of kind of our automation world. And more recently, I would say we ventured into some life sciences by providing automated manufacturing packages for RNA vaccines. So that was done here locally, designed and built in our solution center. And I think another maybe uncommon but interesting one would be we supply the hydrogen blending packages for Southern California's first hydrogen home demonstration project. And that showed out of our Calgary Center 6 months ago. So yeah, broad, right, and kind of deep in the world. And I think you said, our background, 1963 actually was when we were formed as a company. So we celebrated actually our 60th anniversary here this last November. And we are a private company. So, we're not out in the public space as much as some other names you might see. And we're employee owned. And, that's an important part. And I think maybe we'll dig into that a little bit. But we operate across Western Canada, so primarily focused on British Columbia, Alberta, and Saskatchewan, and serving our customers in about 14, I guess, locations now. And it's about being local. So we're really where those large industrial plants are. We typically have operations to support them.
Yeah. So is it safe to say, Grant, as someone may see pictures or video of these big nerve centers of all these industrial facilities, et cetera, that Spartan's had a hand in some of the back end and integration and automation of those big nerve centers of people staring at lots of screens and flows
right. So
and things like
yeah,
that.
we're the screens guys. So the control room you're referring to, the whole Star Trek thing, the nerve center. So control room technology often makes, the shiny pictures, but right down to the plant floor, because there's also the hard work of sensors measuring things and control devices opening and closing and managing speed of pumps and compressors. And so that behind the scenes, there's a lot going on. But yeah, what a lot of people would imagine is control operators sitting in front of screens and making it happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Grant, congratulations on 60 years for the company. That's phenomenal. And I know you've been there almost pretty close to half of that time at Spartan. One of your key pieces, as you mentioned earlier, you're employee owned, your private company, but you're also a leader in that space of employee owned and employee share ownership. Tell us, what are some of the benefits of an employee owned company? What's that model look like, and some of the benefits that it brings to attraction, retention, performance?
Yeah, all good points. Employee ownership, it's at the heart for sure of our business model. I would say our founders had the foresight to ensure that the profits and successes, achieved through the employees, the sweat, equity, the hard work, all that the profits got shared amongst those employees. So, as a result, actually, we don't refer to our people as employees. We refer to them as Spartans, as, weird as that may be. But our ownership model is a key differentiator that, contributes to our longevity, I would say, our resilience, and boy, where we tested here in the last few years, and, just the overall success. And it's still surprising to me, 60 years later, that not many companies do it, and not more are founded based on the approach. And, I guess to expand on the employee owned, what does it do? Well, it empowers, in my view, innovation, makes us more adaptable to change, including, responding to changing times. I think it drives Spartans working together. They're embracing wins, losses, problem solving, creating new solutions, kind of all with the mindset and dedication that you'd expect from an owner, right? And that's a big deal for us. So it's been tremendous. I think it's led to our longevity, and it's not about just leveraging individual strengths. It's people working together as owners, because they're collectively getting to share in the benefits of the rewards of that collective outcome. And frankly, it's a great deal. So you mentioned turnover or retention, and our turnover rate's about a quarter. Maybe it's pushing a third of industry norms, but very, very low. And so you get to build a knowledge base, right? Better and faster than most companies. And we've also been able to retain more folks through the ups and downs, because, we're sharing profits. So you're moving up at the upside, and hopefully you do very well in rising markets. But Spartans take less compensation in downtimes. So it makes us more resilient. We can hold on to our people for sure. And, I guess the last point I would make, Adam, is when you're being served by an owner, let's say in a restaurant or a retail setting, I suspect you probably know that because their attentiveness, their engagement, their knowledge. I think I might have mentioned that already. They're just a notch above. And I think that's been just such a fabulous differentiator for us. And like I said, key to our secret sauce.
Yeah. Yeah. The owner or owners are literally invested in the company and the success of the company, which is a great model. I think there's lots of evidence that says it's a really strong way to drive high performance and to drive commitment to the company.
So why isn't happening more? You have an answer for that one because it's a puzzle.
I don't.
30 years later, still it's like, what the heck?
Yeah, no, I haven't dug into the reasons for that, but you're right. There's definitely room for growth in that side.
Adam, I'll just say one thing. I joined the ESOP coalition, Canadian coalition, and part of the answer to my own question is that there isn't a framework in Canada that is as good as perhaps the one in the US or Britain are. And I think there's some good people trying to get the federal government to understand that there's a framework that's been tried and true. About $2 trillion in wealth has been created in the US through and kind of ESOPs, employee ownership models. And I'm hopeful that that's an area that can progress in Canada too.
Yeah. Yeah, you and I have spoken about that. There's definitely room for Canada to create some more favorable tax conditions to do so for sure. Grant, moving more back to you, let's harken back to Grant, high school diploma in hand, the whole world ahead of him. What was your journey from that moment to where you are today? What were some of the things you're thinking about? Where did you go? What educational path and career path did you take from that point forward?
So at this point, saying I was a high school dropout really wouldn't work for that question. No, I'm kidding.
Hey, no, I'm being presumptuous for sure. You could. Fair. That's fair.
No, I just throwing a little fun into it. But no, if I guess I'd like to rewind the tape just a bit further. I was growing up as the son of an accountant and entrepreneur. I think that instilled some pretty important principles that have guided kind of my career journey and kind of that next stage after high school, kind of the fundamental stuff, hardworking, earning your way, doing what you say you'll do, taking calculated risks, humility, integrity, trustworthy. Those were all foundational things that, kind of I grew up with. And I guess to get more to your point though, I definitely enjoyed math and science growing up. And so I did pursue a degree in mechanical engineering at the University of Alberta. And unfortunately, graduating in, I'll say the year kind of dates me, but oh well. 1985 was not ideal as the economy was struggling. Job opportunities were actually scarce. And it was kind of surprising because, in my first year of engineering, we were told that engineering was like the most demand profession. Everything was going to be, roses. And then 3 years later, when I'm ready to graduate, the situation had drastically changed. And it was an early lesson in the significance and impact of government policy, because if we think back to that time, specifically the national energy policy had come into play. And that was a really big deal for the Alberta economy. So it was kind of maybe my first career example of dealing with a bit of adversity. But anyway, things did turn out, and I'll come to that. I was also interested in how things worked, and that's part of the reason I went into engineering. But during that undergrad degree, I knew I didn't want to be an engineer's engineer. Like engineering design wasn't kind of my thing. And I took business options. All the optional courses I could take were actually business focused. And so my focus was landing, a job more involved with applied engineering, more focus on technical sales engineering, maybe people would call it, more connection with people, more connection with customer kind of environments. And because of the tight job market, I did jump at the first offer I received, and that was from Ingersoll Rand. They're a heavy machinery equipment manufacturer. And, in hindsight, I could have just as easily ended up working for Nova Gas Transmission. That would be the name at the time. It would be now TC Energy, because my previous summer experience was with Nova. So, it's interesting for me, these pivotal moments in your life where, like, I'm riding the bus to Calgary for my Ingersoll interview, all excited. I got this job opportunity. Remember actually pulling in, seeing the Calgary Tower for the first time. It was pretty cool. A couple of weeks later, I get a call from Nova for an interview, and I basically just hung up on them because I said, I got a job, I'm good. And in that split second of just saying, no, thanks, I'm not even going to interview with you, I had already made my decision, and I was sticking with it. And so I went down one path, kind of more into the supply community than the end user community. And that was without a bunch of deep thought or logic or researching alternatives. It was that moment in time. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
So to carry on, I guess, a decade later, globalization was in full swing. The company I worked for at the time now was Dresser-Rand. They decided to relocate their manufacturing from Lethbridge and Calgary to other parts of the world. And I didn't like the lack of local control that was, going to be the case. All decisions were being made in the United States, beyond us, our team here. And I had some good friends working at Spartan and at the time who were helping with the recruitment efforts, if you would. Anyway, it led me to join, Spartan 29 years ago. And the employee-owned part of it, which we've already talked about, that was super important to me, as was local leadership in Calgary, because you could set the direction, define, your own investment opportunity. You always understood kind of where the company was heading, what choices were being made, and what actions were being taken because of those. And at the time, Spartan was pretty small, it was around 100 employees. And so that kind of aligned with my whole kind of entrepreneurial business, focus and desire, and kind of contributing to, at the time, a smaller local business, made sense. So that's a bit of the background. I don't know, Adam, is that?
That's great. No, and then and rose the ranks, and 29 years later, you're the president and CEO. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's been a heck of a journey, right?
Yeah,
Lots
no
of fun.
doubt. Grant, what does a day in your life look like as president and CEO? Any key practices or routines that are important for your day?
Yeah, for sure there is. I'm going to say my day begins with a very predictable way. I think that's super important, and it sets me up for success from the start. And so for me, each morning I begin with a meditation session. This practice has certainly helped me in many ways, for sure. Maintaining energy, clarity, focus, health, and because it's a pretty demanding world we all work in, and a pretty active work schedule. So that is foundational, and I think that's one of my most important messages of what does your day look like, because that's how I begin and end each day. Breakfast for me after that is about, again, routine, predictable. I even make my own granola, and I'm just at the kitchen table, but that's when I'm doing, catching up on current events. I'm not an evening news guy. In the morning, I get caught up on and to kick off the day. If there's urgent email, that kind of thing, I deal with it, in that moment before I actually get to the office. And then when you get to the office, it's kind of, jumping in full on. The beauty of scheduling today and hybrid meetings, and it's like anyone in this position, a pretty full day. Although I do also block specific times so that I can have my own moments of focus and get some things done. And then typical things that I'm the president and CEO. I'm also the board chair of Spartan, and so there's a lot of issues you're dealing with on the people side. There's, on the business side, the strategy side, risk when it comes to board stuff, so it's that whole kind of realm. And that's what I really enjoy, right? Because there's a lot of creativity required, a lot of breadth of topics. And so, it's a great job. Yeah, I just say concluding, the day, I think that's also important. I try to, I mentioned I end my day before dinner with a meditation too. So that's an anchor part of my life, how I've rolled for about 20 years. Allows you to clear your mind, get rid of the kind of the day's stress, regroup again. And then our family, way long ago when my kids were super small, we started doing neighborhood walks every evening. And that became our routine from a family perspective, connecting with our kids, which I think was really important. And it carries on to this day. Sandy and I'll head out for a walk every. So, routines, habits kind of set you up for success. It's an important part of how I roll.
Well, that's super. Yeah, it creates some predictability, and so that takes a lot of the choice out of the day, and you can put your mental energy to other things, which is plentiful.
And Adam, you have to, because there's always going to be the unpredictability in the day, right? And so you've got to be able to have the resilience to deal with that.
Yeah, exactly. Is there anything you think the listeners would be surprised to know about you?
Well, I'm not sure surprised, but a recent undertaking, I'll say, Sandy and I did. My parents owned and operated. My dad was an accountant, had an accounting business, but he also owned and operated a movie theater and a drive-in theater. So as a teenager, my first job there was the janitor, frankly, keeping the place clean. And then over time, got to spend some time in the projection booth. But the love of movies has stayed with me for sure. And so Sandy and I recently ventured into the world of film production. We had an opportunity to be involved in independent film. It's called They Who Surround Us. And that was a local project filmed in Vegreville, my hometown. And it tells the story of a Russian-Ukraine conflict during World War II and the intergenerational trauma it created. Now, what is maybe a little bit surprising as well is we did that in 2019, 2020. So before, of course, we're dealing with the tragedy of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, but it just brought back all this, because we were on that story and it's happened before, right? So it was an experience for us, for sure. We learned a lot, and it actually, was a way to give back to the community, but the inspiration, the scriptwriter and lead actor, Troy Ruptash, he was a childhood friend, and him and Roseanne Milliken, who also were childhood friends. We hadn't seen each other for 40 years, all from Vegreville, got back together and did this film in Vegreville. So that was
cool.
A little bit strange.
That is very cool and different, and something that people would most likely be very surprised to know about you. So that's very, very cool. Very cool, Grant. As we close out this part of the conversation, what advice do you have to someone starting their career? If they would come see you, say, Grant, I want to be the next you. What should I do?
I'd say play to your strengths, get to know yourself and understand really what makes you go, gives you kind of the energy to do what you need to do. For sure, explore various options available to you in the big, and complex world that we live in, but take the time to discover what truly makes you happy and aligns with kind of your unique talents and skills. And, a career spans a significant portion of your life. You're putting a lot of energy into it. So it's really important to find something that you can, be genuinely passionate about, I'd say, and are interested in, for sure. And probably more importantly, gives you some way to meaningfully contribute. I'd also say that I encourage people all the time to visualize their goals, like as clearly and specifically as possible. And it's about understanding the why behind what you aspire to do and what success means to you or looks like. And I would also say it's not so much about the how in getting there. If you have a clear vision of where you're headed, take disciplined action step by step, you're going to end up building a solid foundation that gives you the best chance of achieving what you want to. And I think that is certainly how I've kind of approached things. And setbacks are inevitable, right, for all of us. And I find that generally they provide lessons that are also valuable. So if you can just not get too caught up in, I can't believe that happened to me. Well, learn from it. You never know why that happened or how it's going to actually influence outcomes down the road. And it's definitely going to give you capacity and resilience to deal with tough times. And frankly, we were all tested here a couple of years ago, right? So that's how you get through it.
Yeah, that's great, Grant. And a great segue to another topic I know you're passionate about, which is leadership. And you've created and authored the leadership equation. So I wonder if you'll tell us a little bit about what that is, what inspired you to create it. We'll put the link to it in the show notes. People can get a firsthand view of that, and really what you hope that it will do for the world.
Okay, I think that was your nice way of saying don't spend a half an hour on this answer, because yeah, it's kind of been a bit of a passion. So I'll give you the quick backdrop. It was really, as I was preparing to take on the CE role 8 or 9 years ago, I really wanted to define kind of what I stood for as a leader, my core principles, and how I would kind of show up as a leader. And it was actually during one of those morning meditation sessions that I kind of had this moment of, E equals MC squared, Albert Einstein's famous equation. That kind of makes sense to me, that I could adapt it to communicate a leadership philosophy, frankly. So if you think about the equation, of course, E is for energy, M is for mass in the equation, but I'll come back to that. C is the speed of light. And so what I did, C being the speed of light, is a constant. So it just, for me, it became, okay, what are the constants of leadership? And M being the meaning, the purpose. And really it comes down to, if you're driven by meaning or purpose, you anchor in what I landed on was 12 constants of leadership. You'll definitely have all the energy you need to, for yourself, which allow you to contribute to those around you, family, friends, your work, and the community at large. And so it kind of came together very quickly in that moment. Of course, over time, though, I built out, okay, what are the right words? People often ask, well, why'd you land on 12? And I started with as many as 20. I can't believe how many C words there are, but I landed on contribute, competence, clarity, creative, communicator, connect, competitive, change, courage, calm, conscious, and committed. Those were the 12. And there's a story behind all of them. And yeah, if there's a link, that's great, because I put some effort into unpacking some of those words, what they mean to me, and how they can make you better.
Yeah. Is that something that's embedded in Spartan? Is that the philosophy or the culture, or is that more just something that you created in for yourself?
Well, okay, so that's a great question, because I did, it was all about me at the beginning, but no, it was, okay, how are you going to show up as a leader? And so if it tone from the top matters in a big way, right? And you have a lot of influence over, because of that tone and how you're showing up. And so I knew that if I anchored in what became the equation, that it had a good chance of overflowing into, what we do, how we roll at Spartan. And really, I think it's had some great influence around, for my senior leadership team around me, but we actually formalized it. We created an emerging leaders program, the University of Calgary Haskins School of Business 4 years ago, and embedded the leadership equation as part of the overall framework of the 4 modules. And so we're on to our 4th year. We just kicked that off last week. And so I spend the whole first day with that cohort, talk to them about the background of the leadership equation, why I think it's important. I kind of unpack it a bit and set the stage for anchoring in the course. We've also done some of our management training, leveraging the competencies or attributes from the equation.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great segue back to talking a bit more about Spartan as well, and what it does in the world. Your vision is to create a sustainable modern world with innovative automation. Tell us a little bit more about how Spartan brings that vision to life, and what does a modern world with innovative and automation look like? What do people see and experience in the world around them as a result of that?
Yeah, well, I think it starts, with the recognition of the vital role that automation plays in enabling the production of the goods that shape our modern lifestyle. We've talked a little bit about that already, but if I just to recap, whether it's heat for our homes, water to our taps, electricity to our wall sockets, plastics for the thousands of products we consume, lumber for our homes, cement for our structures, medicines for our wellness, fertilizer for our crops, packaged food for our pantries. Those are all empowered by automation, right? And the primary focus of automation is to make industrial operations safe, reliable, and efficient. And so by implementing advanced automation technologies and systems, we are helping our customers optimize the production of whatever they're making, improve product quality, enhance operational performance and throughput. And so that increases productivity, reduces waste, and ultimately it is leading to more sustainable practices. I'd also say that we're committed in a big way to energy management. We have a whole combustion business. We have an advanced process control business. We have a software business now, Blue Marvel AI, that's dedicated to emissions reduction. So our automation solutions are enabling industries to allow them to monitor and control energy consumption, identify areas of inefficiency, like I said, implement measures to reduce energy waste, so another form of waste, and optimizing energy usage, which people will, I hope, equate to carbon footprint, and which equates to a more sustainable future, right?
Yeah.
So we're about eliminating emissions at source and also helping our customers eliminate emissions throughout the entire process through to the exhaust stack, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
I think a more concrete way to say it or example would be the focus on CO2, because it's such a timely topic right now. So CO2e, or carbon dioxide equivalent emissions, which would include nitrous oxides, which would include methane. Through our technologies now, we're hitting about 4 million metric tons of CO2 reduction per year.
Wow.
So across all industries, our technology enabling that. And so I'm not saying we're taking credit for it's our customers, processes, but it's our equipment and services and solutions that are helping them mitigate 4 metric tons a year. And since we've been measuring our impacts, and we do it right down to the device level, the cumulative is 20 metric tons. So it's a big number. And that's, we have actually a pathway to 2030 on a cumulative basis to get to about 10 megatons per year and 100 on a cumulative basis. So that's kind of underscoring, I guess, the commitment to the environmental side, the sustainability, helping industries transition to more cleaner, sustainable processes and practices.
Yeah. Briefly, Grant, are there any sectors, industries, processes that are under automated or ripe for automation that you got your eye on?
I think it's more a matter of more automation, and directionally where people are looking to, some of the reasons I've talked about already, driving efficiency, or they don't have as many gray-haired people around that have the answers to some of the problems they're trying to solve. And actually, a lot of these industrial processes are very safety sensitive, so you don't want to have people inside a plant environment. And so there isn't, I wouldn't say any of the process industries have been so far left behind that all of a sudden they have to do a catch up. But I would say there's a lot more that can be done because the automation keeps getting better. The chipsets, the software tools, like this is an evolving technology area that is really robust. And so across, these dozen or 14 industries that we serve, most of our customers are looking at better ways to get at reducing their costs, reducing their people exposure, and improving their operations.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Grant, as President and CEO of Spartan, what keeps you up at night? What issues are top of mind for you?
What do you think, Adam? Is the world getting less complicated or more?
No, it's definitely getting more, for sure.
Oh my gosh, right? So I don't know. I'm sure on your listeners' minds, some of the list is long on the things that businesses face, right? Conflicts like the one we've already mentioned, unfolding in Ukraine, the resulting energy security issues, especially in places like Europe, major disruptions in supply chain. That was a big one, continues to be a big one for us over the last year and a half. I've never seen anything anywhere remotely like it in my career, especially around complex materials and integrated circuits like chipsets. Those are things that we've been facing as a business, but a lot of those are still beyond our control. We ramped up inventory levels. We added people. We did a lot of things to mitigate, but we're getting through that. So I don't know. There's a few other things kind of more on a local level that I would unpack as issues that frankly concern me. Is it okay if I kind of go through a bit of a list?
Okay, what are your top three?
Okay, well, this shift to an attitude of saying no to things rather than embracing opportunity investment and saying yes, things like a lengthy approval process, regulatory uncertainty, intricate and complicated environmental policies, all of that are creating obstacles for our customers to get things done. And they're key to maintaining our, standard of living, our prosperity. And so we need to change the dialogue to get to yes again. So that would be one. I think a challenge that, in our space, the underutilization of innovation. We have a lot of good ideas here. It's still sometimes hard to get our customers to implement some things that I think are a slam dunk, that it could help them. It's, it's bandwidth, it's attention span, it's money, it's a number of things. But that I think when we contrast Canada and the market, Canada versus the United States, I think we're slower adopters actually in some innovation areas. And related to innovation is intellectual property. And I do have concerns like, we patent things. We are very focused now on developing our IP. And we're not going to be one of those companies that just sell it off. No, we're here to stay here to develop our intellectual property. And I just think Canadian companies have just become too commonplace. You get to a certain scale with an idea, a good idea, and it gets thrown over the fence, to private equity or somebody, buys them out. And we've just got such great potential at our universities. We sponsor a couple of research chairs. There's just such a good flow incoming. Yeah. I think we just need to keep it at home. And I'll keep it to the realm of automation and emerging technologies. Artificial intelligence has been in the news a lot, right? And so I do have concerns where that's heading. We're an automation company, so we're dealing with some of that technology in our environment. And governments, they lag on policy and lots of things, and it's really at the speed of light, which is really what this kind of technology is developing at. We need to get back out in front with some responsible regulation, because things like privacy, intellectual property rights, call it bad use or nefarious use of information, these need to be better understood and managed now with some pace, because we're on this, exponential kind of curve now of AI. And I think that's going to be an important area for lots of people to lean in on in the near term.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, it's lots of conversation on that AI and where it's going and its uses and pathways. I totally agree. Grant, you and I are speaking May 31st, 2 days after the recent provincial election. We now know the Premier Smith, the UCP, will lead for the next 4 years. And so from a big picture future of Alberta standpoint, what are you hoping that Premier Smith and her government does in terms of setting up Alberta for not only the next 4 years, but for the next decade? What are you looking for, and what's important to you for Spartan, for Grant Wilde?
Well, I think I'd start out by saying I really appreciate the nonpartisan approach the Business Council has taken, and you personally, Adam. I think
Thank you.
Kind of shooting it down the middle is really helpful. And it helps me get on board, because I just think there's too much divisiveness that at play, and that doesn't help anyone. And I think a lot of business owners are pretty practical. They want to get some things done. Totally. I want to do it responsibly. So anyway, just a bit of a backdrop there. I think the Alberta government has to continue to support industry like they've been doing, frankly, red tape reduction, kind of that taking away burdens that don't make sense. I think they're on that. I think we're also on fostering positive relationships and collaboration with Indigenous communities. I think there's been just, we're overdue, right, to kind of bring that to the forefront. And I think there's been great progress there. I think diversification, there's some really good work that's happened there. I ran through some of the industries we serve. Well, for a long, long time, oil and gas was the 800-pound gorilla. And so now we're seeing, like, we can look at industries growing through our lens, right? Who is out there to support now? And that list is getting longer and longer. And that feels good, whether it's biotech, whether it's alternative energy, food and beverage, even, that value-added agriculture stuff.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
So that's all, good for economic resilience. I think let's keep that going. We're also closely watching, involved in, helping with carbon capture and storage. And this one, there's a lot of energy being put into it. And I think the feds are probably, well, they seem like they're saying we've done all we will do. Now it's up to the province. And I really hope that the province with the feds and industry can get that kind of figured out and dialed in sooner rather than later. Because 2030 seems like an impossibly short timeline to achieve what everyone wants to achieve if we don't get like shovels in the ground, right? Like
Totally agree.
We need to be moving. Another one is healthcare, because we've all been exposed to that, certainly, and overwhelmed with information and even personal experiences. But I do think that we need strong leadership and some creativity in our healthcare system. It's just not sustainable the way it's set up. So I'm trying to do my part, our part here at Spartan, where we actually put a lot of effort into a program that we're developing in-house called Spartan 100. It's basically on, focusing on wellness and health outcomes and how do you see yourself living successfully to the ripe old age of 100. So, we're early days in that, but we're trying to put more information on a broader basis in the hands of our employees. And I think our healthcare system is very effective at urgent care and emergency care, but I really would love to see a pivot to more prevention and more education around prevention. And frankly, it's back to the habits conversation we had, changing some habits.
Yeah.
That's how we're going to get out of this. Anyway, a few comments there.
That's great, Grant. Grant, we'll wrap with a question we ask everybody is, if there's one thing you can leave people with today, we hope they take away from this conversation, what would it be? Is there something you'd underscore you've already said? Is there something new you want to leave our listeners with, which are keen observers of Alberta's leaders and their leadership philosophies? What would you like them to take away?
Okay, well, I think I'll say something I've maybe already said, but in a different way. And I'm going to go back to where I started. I'm kind of interested in, math and science and engineering, certainly. But in that realm, there's something called the signal to noise ratio, which compares the strength of a desired signal to the level of background noise. And what I would say in today's fast-paced and information-saturated world, for sure, we're bombarded with countless inputs from various sources, creating a constant buzz of noise, thoughts, overactive minds that I think drowns out the signals that we really need to hear. We're too much background noise, not enough signal strength. So my hope for everyone is that, each of us establishes practices or habits that allows us to quiet our minds, create a space where the appropriate and best thoughts can reach each of us. And I think it's essential to find those moments of stillness, inner silence, where the signal that's meant to get through are the ones that do. And they're going to be the ones that are supportive of growth, success, well-being. And those are the ones that have to break through this noise. And from my own experience, I'm going to tell you that I couldn't be doing what I'm doing without having attention on that particular area.
I love that. That's a fantastic perspective. Too much noise to pick up the signals. I couldn't agree with you more. We're bombarded with noise, whether it's literal noise around us, whether it's virtual noise on our smartphones, or just the craziness and pace of life and of business. So much noise, hard to parse out that signal, what's important, what's not. So the great closing words, Grant. Anything else that you wanted to share with our listeners we didn't cover?
Alberta is a great place to live, work, raise a family. Proud Albertan. I'm all in on this place. And, we're doing very well as a company. We're in a very good, we have growth momentum, creating a lot of, I think, value for our customers and adding value in our communities. So I think we're in a really good place, and I hope it keeps going, because there is a lot of noise out there, and there is a lot of things that can try to knock you off course. But we're feeling pretty good and kind of dialed in to the Alberta marketplace and certainly Western Canadian marketplace, and we're in a good place right now. So I appreciate the opportunity to share a bit of my story, and hopefully some of the insights make some sense.
They all do. They all do. And love some of the personal stories around the leadership journey side of things, the equation, meditation, signals and noise. Grant, thank you so much for joining us, and let's wishing you continued great performance, Spartan, as you navigate these challenging times. So thank you so much for being with us.
Right on. Thanks, Adam. Great to be here.
Well, thank you for joining us for this episode of C-Suite Unplugged, an Alberta Better podcast series. This podcast is a production of the Business Council of Alberta, and you can learn more about us at businesscouncilab.com. And we'd love to connect with you on social media, so give us a follow at BizCouncilAB on Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, and YouTube. And if you liked this episode and want to support our message of shared prosperity for all, please be sure to head over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts to subscribe, rate the show, and give us a quick review. New episodes drop every other Tuesday. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.